guys, so what was that wave? Okay, anyway, I don't want you guys to be discouraged. I know it's taken me forever to get this American Horror Story episode 1 review out. It's because I was house sitting out of town and I don't have editing software on my laptop. I only use my desktop for editing, so I just took it as like a little mini break, and you know, when I got back I would film this video. So that's why not every review is going to be this late. Obviously I'll always get it up before the next episode airs, but I just wanted to give you that little heads up. Obviously we know also that I'm not the best with timing, so just bear with me. Also these videos, I have a lot of like disclaimers apparently. These videos won't be as like thoroughly edited or researched or anything because there's so many episodes in a season, however many, 10, 12, whatever. But generally I'm just going to sit down and have like a ramble session with you guys on my thoughts on the episodes. So they won't be like my movie reviews are going to be where they're more structured. This one's just kind of rambly. We're just gonna sit and chat about American Horror Story. So now we're obviously getting into Apocalypse, which I was so excited when I saw the promos for this, and the imagery is just gorgeous. Like I would frame the promo images if I could. Like they're just beautiful and I love the concept. And then they announced that it's actually going to be a Murder House Coven crossover season. So I was super excited because those are obviously two of their most successful seasons. Granted, Asylum will still always be my favorite season, but yeah, obviously Coven and Murder House are some of the best in the series, in the franchise. Not a lot of people liked the later seasons, and that's why a lot of people were nervous about Apocalypse, because they were like, are they gonna redeem themselves? I feel like Cult just kind of went more for shock value, so I was really excited to see what they were going to do with Apocalypse. For me, this season, I can tell you already, is going to be very effective for me because this is one of my biggest fears, is like nuclear war happening in the United States. Just the apocalypse in general. I am terrified of it. I don't think about it on the daily, of course, but it's something that I feel like most people are genuinely scared of. So I think it's smart for them to pick something that is generally interesting but also scary to the general public. I actually saw many people say that they were really disappointed with the first episode, and I have my faults with it, but I have to say I really liked it. I think people were mostly disappointed because they were promised a Coven Murder House crossover, and then they tweeted that photo of the Coven reunited even with Stevie Nicks, and people were like freaking out over that, as was I. I was super excited. But obviously in the first episode we don't really get that yet, so it's not obvious that it's a Murder House Coven crossover season yet based on the first episode. But I was still very excited, even if it's just in small ways. Are they related or are they mentioned in the video? In the season, I still like that it's remaining to be its own story and that it's not just bringing back Coven and Murder House. I feel like it's a good thing that the Apocalypse season is going to be its own thing first and foremost, and then we get little hints of Coven and Murder House in the season. So the first thing right off the bat that I was super disappointed in the first episode was how quickly they rushed right through the apocalypse. I mean, the whole episode, we're already 18 months into the storyline at this point. I was really looking forward to the apocalypse storyline, the build-up and the suspense and building that fear of the nuke bomb being dropped. I was really hoping for that, and like, I don't know, people building shelters and seeing a little bit more backstory before the bomb, but literally it's like within a 6-minute period of time that the bomb is dropped and we're following this character getting on a plane. Like, I felt like it was too rushed, and that, I mean, I feel like in the past they've had slow beginnings in a lot of their seasons, so I think they're trying to, you know, do something different and just like get through this story. So obviously this season is not as much about the apocalypse as it is post-apocalypse, but I feel like we missed so much like scary stuff that could be happening by skimming through so quickly at the beginning and like the end of the world. Like the end of the world happened and we just like skipped right through that in 10 minutes. So I don't obviously know what's going to be in store for the rest of the season. Maybe it was a good thing that we skipped through all of that. I still hope that we see some plot and some story take place outside of the bunkers, so you know that we can see the radiation winter happening, which that concept alone to me is just horrifying because there's so much radiation, smoke, and clouds that it causes a winter to happen. Ugh, horrifying. Another thing that I really didn't like about the beginning of the episode is how they just glossed over their family and friends dying. They were, I mean, they had like a moment with Leslie Grossman's character being on, you know, the phone with her dad. There was that whole moment, but other than that, she was just kind of like, I'll just leave my husband. It's whatever. You guys get on the plane. Let's go. Like, it was just making light of this whole situation and like making light of the people dying. Also, when people were shot right in front of them, they didn't really have a strong reaction to it. They were just kind of like, let's go, let's get on the plane. To me, like, that's how I interpreted it. They didn't seem that afraid, and I feel like the general person would be like freaking out over the end of the world happening, losing everyone that they know and love, and then seeing people like get shot in the face right in front of them. Like, American Horror Story has this comedy aspect to it, and you know, there's a lot of pop culture references in this episode of like the girl wanting to be an Instagram influencer and drinking green juice, and like, you know, they reference this isn't pop culture, but they reference the Hawaii bomb scare, you know, how there was this exact message sent out to Hawaii residents and it ended up being like fake, or like on accident it was released. And so they did mention that when the message went out to everyone. Leslie Grossman's character was like, oh, they'll probably just take it back in a minute or so, just give it some time. It's probably like the Hawaii incident. So then we see Outpost 3. That's where we kind of like go into, and that's like this bunker that used to be a school for boys, I guess. And they take like elite people, and my suspicion is for repopulation. So they take like the smartest, most athletic, whatever people to repopulate, I'm guessing. But in that vein, shouldn't they have gotten more than 2 people? Like, can they tell based on, they made a reference to like the not ancestry, it's like 23andMe, like, you know, those DNA testing things where you send your spit in and then they look at your DNA makeup and send you like a report. They referenced that that's how they figured out that these people were elite people and like worthy of being saved, which I think is funny. But like, could they tell fertility from that? I don't think that they can. So like, how would they know that these 2 people are the best people to repopulate? That's all my theory, of course, but I feel like they should have taken like 4 people. And then also they'll take people who bought a ticket into the bunker for $100 million. So when we actually get into the bunker, it's a very gothic atmosphere and I love it. It's very dark and gloomy and it's like a different era completely. They don't have electricity or anything. They're on food rations where it's literally just like a gelatinous cube that they have to eat with the amount of nutrients that they need. So like nothing within the bunker feels modern at all, besides maybe the workers' hairdos. So obviously we have many familiar faces coming back this season. We have Kathy Bates, Sarah Paulson, Evan Peters, Billy Lord, and of course we know since Coven is being reunited, even Jessica Lange is going to be making an appearance in this season, which I cannot wait for. So obviously the biggest connection so far that we have to any of the past seasons is the very end of the episode. We get a connection to Murder House when we see Michael Langdon. So obviously he was born at the end of Murder House, and he was born of human and spirit, which makes him the Antichrist. So I think it's related to the teaser that we saw where Kathy Bates is saying "Hail Satan." I think it's related to Michael Langdon's character, obviously, since he's like actually Satan, and he's one of like the leaders of the cooperative. So it's going to be interesting to see how his powers, and like obviously he has dark powers of some kind if he's actually Satan or the Antichrist. We'll see how that plays into the story, but I'm really glad that we get to see his storyline. I feel like that's one character that we kind of assumed the ending of, but I'm glad that he is now a character in this season. I feel like that's going to be really interesting. And then another thing, a theory that I actually saw online is that this is actually going to turn into a zombie apocalypse season, which my first knee-jerk reaction to that is, oh dear God, not another zombie thing. Like, we don't need another zombie thing. Also, can we talk about how The Walking Dead plans on continuing for another 10 years. I've never been a fan of The Walking Dead personally. I don't even know how they could continue for 10 more years. It's all the same. Anyway, back to Apocalypse. So I think it's definitely gonna turn into a zombie thing because there's already been a few references to there being zombies in the world in this season. Just like Sarah Paulson's character Wilhelmina says, those canker pus monsters outside. Obviously there are people trying to survive out in the radiation, which obviously they can't, so I'm assuming that they turned into what's going to come into play later as monsters and zombies or whatever, which I hope they do something different with that. I really hope there's something original within that idea of zombies, because we've seen so many zombies that if it's not original, I am going to tune out mentally and like not enjoy it. Another thing that I really appreciate that's just kind of small little mention is the intro. The new intro is beautiful. I love it. There's a lot of odes to Murder House and Coven in it. They use a lot of the same imagery within the intro from both those seasons, which I think is really cool. So it's too soon to say whether American Horror Story has really redeemed themselves with this season yet, but I am super pumped. Like, I'm excited. I love everything about it so far. And I'm kind of surprised that people are so disappointed. I think it mostly has to do with the fact that we aren't getting any Coven in it yet, or really any Murder House yet. Like, the old characters haven't come back yet, but they are going to make an appearance. But I think this season is going to be more about the apocalypse and this main storyline that we've been introduced to versus bringing back old characters. It's definitely not going to be focused, I think, on Murder House and Coven, and I think that's what's disappointing people. I've always had an open mind to this season in general. I try to because I want to give them the benefit of the doubt every time, and I think this season is going to be really good if I had to guess how it's going to do and how I'm going to react to it. I think I'm going to enjoy it a lot. I don't know, what are your thoughts on this season or on this episode? Episode 1, what did you think? Were you one of the ones disappointed? Do you have high hopes? Were you pleasantly surprised? Leave your thoughts down below. I hope you enjoyed, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.